One major advantage of using software synths is the amount of control that you have over your parameters. Especially in post-production, automation is the name of the game, I would say. I was a stock music composer for years before doing this whole YouTube thing, and so I'm familiar with all these super high quality string VSTs. Something sort of clicked recently, and that's the way that I think of synth VSTs now. Kind of like Hans Zimmer style. After experience with both, I've realized that it really is the same thing, except that you have way more parameters and room for expression with a synth. In this video, we're going to be working with the June 6V, which is modeled after the iconic Juno 6 or 60. The layout of the June 6V is classic and standard, much like this cute little Juno right here. We'll be working with very simple synth parameters that most software synths have, you know, to sort of just spice this riff up. And also to make sure that this technique is available to anyone who has a software synth using any DAW. Juno, LK, let's get synthy with it. I already have a full-on synth riff ready to go, so here it is with the full band. And here's the riff soloed. You can hear right off the bat that there's some sidechain compression going on. It's actually sidechained to the kick. Besides that, it does sound a little bit flat. There's no like dynamics or lifts into phrases or anything like that. And it's just lacking any sort of expression at this point. So the very first thing that we'll play with is ADSR. Not all synths have ADSR, but if you're working with any major DAW, then you have access to a synth with these parameters. So what do these letters stand for? Attack, delay, sustain, release. Just automating sustain alone will really help open things up. We're looking at carrying that energy in and out of phrases, so that's the first thing we're going to look at. I'm using Logic Pro, and I'm assuming that whatever DAW you're using, you have a handle on automation. If you're a Logic Pro user and you do not have a handle on automation, there you go, there's a video right there. I'm currently on my synth track, and what I like to do is set this right here to touch. I'll open up my synth, and now any parameter that I change here will be recorded into the stem. Like I said, this sort of thing is accessible in any DAW one way or another. Let's take a look. I ramped up the sustain here at the end of this 4-bar phrase to help carry it back to the beginning, which I think works. I'll do the same thing with decay, and I'm going to play it by ear here. Same sort of thing, so the notes at the end of the phrase really opened up and added some intensity. Release with pads sometimes is a little bit tricky because I don't want any sort of tonal bleed going on into the next chord, so let's take a shot at it, see what happens. Didn't have as much of an effect. I think that decay and sustain are the game changers in this case. So just with ADSR, we have a pretty drastic change here. And going back to that string analogy that I was talking about, bringing those peaks and valleys into your synth phrasing is just going to enhance the overall experience of your music. This little LFO fader here has been eyeing me the whole time, so that's the next thing we're going to take a look at. LFO is essentially a mix knob for these two parameters here. You won't have to search for long to find a stock DAW synth that has an LFO parameter. To give you an example of what sort of effect this has, I'm just gonna blast this one here, and I'll just be tweaking delay time and rate. It's pretty straightforward. Delay time is the amount of time before this sort of spinning LFO thing reacts. And then of course the rate is how fast that spinning sort of effect happens. So the possibilities are big just with these three faders. I'll put this LFO fader to about 50% to get a more realistic idea of what we're working with. And we'll start by recording some automation and smashing this rate fader. I don't really mind where the delay time is, so we're just gonna leave it as is. So let's hear the before and after with the band. I snuck in some cheeky reverb in the after version as well, but what a difference it makes, right? In my experience, when I start crafting individual parts like this, it just makes me think simpler in terms of the arrangement. If you're stuck, instead of trying to add a different instrument, maybe just perfect or craft the instruments that are already a part of your arrangement. You may just magically feel like the arrangement is full enough without those extra instruments. That's the difference that one part makes without any external effects, and this is like a 4-bar phrase, so you could get really deep into this if you want. If there's one thing that I've learned about making music over the years, it's that simpler is almost always better. And that's just the type of thing that I have to remind myself like every time that I compose music. And hopefully this is sort of like a eureka moment for some of you to try and simplify things, but with a bit of extra craft. For those of you who don't know, I'm also a hardware synth guy. I dabble, but of course I recognize the advantages of software synths as well, and there are a lot of them. The affordability, so you could have like, 50 synths in your DAW. There's no invasion of space, and there's way more control over parameters, especially in post-production. Yeah, I see you. Hey, thanks for watching. A couple little things I wanted to say. I'm now streaming on Twitch on Tuesdays as well as Fridays. I do live Logic DAW sessions as well. The best way to keep track of when I go live is through Discord, so I've left a link to that in the description, as well as a link to my Twitch. I always appreciate you guys watching, so like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I will see you very, 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 very soon. Okay, ciao, bye.